But before we get in our episode, we're actually going to answer a fan email question.
Yeah.
So we're just going to get into it. Right up top, we have a herpes question for the pod. Here's our email. Thank you so much for being open, vulnerable, and putting a comedic spin on some heavy topics. I was diagnosed with genital HSV-1 3 years ago, and like Erica, immediately searched for online support to get me through it. I found very little out there, so was thrilled when I stumbled upon your podcast. In this time of great anxiety in my life, you have me laughing out loud and feeling like not so much of a freak. For being nothing more than contagious blisters, this virus is incredibly isolating, and talking about it more helps normalize it. I appreciate the steps you've taken to do that. Maybe you've already covered this topic and I missed it, but got any suggestions on how to break the news to a new partner? I am lost for words on how to bring it up and not make it sound like a death sentence. I need a strategy. Thank you. From Feeling Broken.
Oh.
I relate on the strategy. You need a system. What I call it. But first of all, thank you so much for your email. And if anybody else is out there and want to email any questions, we're at shootersgottashootpod@gmail.com. Send us a note. We'd be happy to cover whatever you guys want on the podcast. Also suggestions on what you want us to talk about. All right. Well, I actually want to throw this to you, Molly.
Me? Okay.
So let's try to think. I guess maybe before you knew I had herpes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no one super close in your life that had it. If you were, let's just say, on a first date with a guy.
Okay.
We'll keep it that vague. How would you essentially want someone that had herpes to disclose it to you? And also, when?
Okay. I think probably like at a point where things were going to get physical. Like, I don't think it's something you need to do, like, as, you know, after you order the first round of drinks. Like, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
Because that's, on a first date, that's a huge assumption that, like, you're going to get that far. But
Right.
if you are, you know, if you go back to their apartment or something and you start, like, making out, like, maybe that's the time. Because also I don't think I would appreciate it if I'm, like, you know, like, all heated up, like, in your bed.
Okay. Like, before it's actually in the bedroom.
Yeah.
So you're, like, separate from the bedroom, ideally.
Yeah, but, like, there is an implication that sex might happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think I would want, one, obviously, like, not to be pressured into anything.
Right.
But, like, also just told a little bit more at the time. Like, when you explained to me that you hadn't had an outbreak in years and or you only had the one outbreak ever and it makes you way less likely to pass it, like, obviously you had done your homework and you knew what you were talking about. And I think a huge reason why we have this podcast is because most people don't know anything about herpes. And so
It's just a scary word to hear.
it is. It
throws you off.
Yeah.
Even if you are someone that knows people that have it, yada, yada, yada. Because
Yeah.
I've had friends reach out to me since the pod, being like, hey, I went on a couple days with this girl, she told me she had herpes. And they're even like, can you walk me through this a little more?
Yeah.
Even though it's like they like the girl and and they know on my standpoint I'm fine and like haven't given it to people. But there's just a lot of unknown, or it's like it's kind of one of those things that feels like in a way it doesn't exist until it's like right in your front door and you're like, oh, people do have this kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think I would want to be told with, like, a little bit of context of, you know, like, if they just had a breakout like a week ago, or like if they are someone who in your situation only had the one and it's been years and the virus is basically dormant in their body. Like, you can't really make a decision without information.
This is something someone educated about herpes would say.
Oh,
See, that's something that's we're technically sliding into you're educated about it, because I've only had one person, when I told them, just go, when was your last outbreak?
Oh.
And I was like, a couple years ago, and they were like, oh. And then they didn't even flinch. So unfortunately that part, you know, she said she was diagnosed 3 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know how often you have outbreaks, but kind of a beauty of the fact that you got diagnosed a while ago is you basically have a timetable.
Yeah.
So that's what's really hard of when you first get it and you're telling somebody. You very much have the fear in you that you're going to just give it to somebody because you just got it.
Yeah.
So it feels very like this, you know, it is true. This goes around a lot, or especially if you got it from someone with no symptoms. Like, there's so many different things that you're a lot of times fear-based.
Yeah.
But being someone like actually having it a couple years, and, you know, I've had a couple friends, they figured out after having it a few years, they're like, oh, around my period I get a bump
Mm-hmm.
or two. So I start taking meds just when I'm PMSing, and that avoids that, or whatever. Like, you kind of figure out your own cues of
Mhm.
when things are a little off in a potential outbreak. So that's the bright side you have, having it for a few years. I would assume you probably have at least told some people
Mm-hmm.
before, and maybe it just hasn't been going the way you want it to go. But I mean, I'm like, what, the first, I don't know, I feel like 5-6 people I told was basically a no.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, part of it's almost like you kind of get used to the no,
Mm-hmm.
and also you lose the fear. Like, you clearly have a little fear of telling somebody, and you're like, how do I make it not sound like a death sentence? It's like, well, this is an unfortunate piece of advice, but when you truly feel like it is a death sentence, it is hard to tell somebody about it and almost not freak them out in a way.
Yeah, because they're gonna kind of like take the lead on your energy. If you start
Yeah.
telling them very nervously, they're gonna be like, well, I have something to be nervous about.
Right.
You know, but if you're confident in what you're saying and what you're able to articulate about your body and the way the virus acts in your body,
Right.
then they're gonna probably just be a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, it's like the thing with children, like if they're to like fall on their butt at a very young age,
Mm-hmm.
and the parent starts freaking out, then the kid
kid's
cries.
Yeah.
But it's like, if the parent's just like, you're okay, you're great.
Yeah.
The kid's like, I'm okay,
They're
I'm
just gonna
great.
lick some more dirt.
Yeah, that was my sister. We'd beat up all the time, and you know, we would just go, uh-oh, and she'd just go, uh-oh. It was like a fun game. It's a fun game. She's fine. She's doing financially well and all that, so she's good. She's fine. We hit her head a couple times, but
I was the last kid. I feel that.
yeah, it just was like, she's good. You're made of steel or something. But yeah, like, well, especially so when I threw it to you, right? There's also something of like, I'm kind of curious, right? Like, you're on, especially like, say like a first date with somebody, and so even if it goes so well, you're like at their apartment, making
Mhm.
out, whatever. I almost wonder if it's something that's like, there's almost also a plus side to waiting a little bit.
Yeah.
That like even for you, if you were to be told like someone has herpes, and especially say you didn't know me,
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like a first date just is soon for anybody to hear, man,
Yeah.
woman, whatever. That it's almost like you could kind of lie and almost kind of be like, hey, you know, I don't want to rush anything. I want to take things slow.
But do you think that they should avoid sex then if they like the person on the first date?
I mean, it's really up to you.
Because I
I've-
think it would be harder for me personally. Like, if I slept with someone on the first date, like, it was going really well and the intention to go out with them again, and then
Mhm.
say like date 4, they're like, hey, by the way,
Oh no,
you
don't do
know,
that.
yeah, because like if you
Yeah,
do
that's not
sleep
what
with
I'm
them on
saying.
the first date, then like, and with the intention of seeing them again, I think you do need to tell them on the first date.
But I think I'm actually not sure, because I copied and pasted this. I don't know if this is from a woman or a man,
Okay.
but I feel like if you're a woman and you date men, there is an art to like waiting and whatever, the art of like, when do you put out, I guess.
According to the rules.
According to, I mean, a lot of things, even life experience,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like for most women, if you're on a date and it's going well and you sleep with the guy, you kind of are being like, yeah, I probably would do this again.
Right.
Whereas for a lot of men, they can be on a date being like, I'm not into this girl at all. They
But
could
I'm
hate you,
yeah.
but they would still sleep with you,
Absolutely.
like type
Yeah.
of thing. So I'm just saying, it's like I'm just someone personally, in general, right? Herpes, no herpes. If I am into somebody on an emotional level a little bit, like I'm on the date and I'm like, oh, I'm into this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just hesitant to sleep with them because I know I like them.
Yeah.
Because I know I would just be hurt to sleep with them, not hear from them again,
Yeah.
type of thing.
That does suck.
It's almost like the easy one night stands are when you're like, this guy fucking sucks.
Yeah.
You're just like, yeah, whatever, I'll sleep with him, I don't care. Like, you're like, I don't care if I hear from this dude again,
I kind of hope I don't.
type of thing. Yeah. But in terms of actually telling them, I personally like, we had the episode with Joe and Sarah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Joe's advice, he indirectly would do the thing usually where he wouldn't sleep with someone too soon.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was just because he was too anxious to
Mhm.
tell them that quickly. But he was saying to us, you should tell someone like right before you're about to have sex. Almost like they're turned
Yeah.
on, they already wanted to have sex with you. But that's also from a man's perspective.
Yeah.
But also when he said that, I didn't say this on the pod, mainly because I didn't want to be rude to Joe. But I was sitting there being like, that has never worked for me. It worked for me one time, but then I never saw that person again. We didn't hook up anymore.
Okay.
Type of thing. So it almost was like, I don't know if it was like, quote, boner brain, as we called it in like when we met in group one time. We were kind of discussing like, almost is it not dishonest, but almost is it manipulative in a way to basically be like, I have this person turned on so much and so ready to go on the brink that they're more likely to kind of be like, yeah, herpes, whatever. But then the minute like sex is done, they're like, wait, what the hell did I just do?
Right.
And almost having like buyer's remorse
in
a way. So we like have debated, is that manipulative? Is it not? I mean, I don't think so either way because it's like everybody's, their own person. But the only time I've had it succeed of telling them right before physical activity, whether it was going on dates.
Physical activity.
Before
gym class.
You try to talk about these things eloquently.
Check your heart rate.
When you change to your gym clothes, you're ready to sweat. You got your game face on. I've only had it technically work once, but then, like I said, I never saw that person again.
Okay.
So I don't know, was it the buyer's remorse or was it just the like, yeah, if I'm hooking up with a few people, it feels dangerous to be hooking up with one that has an STD that I technically am putting other people at risk, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. So what, I guess, the last like little relationship I was in, they found out actually via this podcast, and clearly I understand not everybody has a podcast. But a couple friends I have that have herpes, they'll do a phone call because there's not the physical reaction facially. I keep saying physical. But I think there's some truth to that of like, if you just call someone and you're like, hey, I have to tell you something, that they're more just listening. Because there's a little bit of in life when someone goes, hey, I want to talk to you. Or like, we need to talk
my heart
is always
drops
right, a little bit. So I don't think you need to do that.
Yeah.
I think always, no matter when you tell someone, at what point, whether it's to their face, whether it's, I know someone that would just like do it over the dinner portion or food portion, whatever, of like the third date, where they're basically like, I've decided I like this person. I would like to sleep with them. They'll just find a way for it to whatever, just kind of be like,
because it is
by
a
the way.
huge thing to disclose to someone that like on a first date you might not even know if you really like them or not.
That's what I'm saying. The first date you kind of don't know.
Yeah. So do you think it depends on like when and how to tell them based on your emotional level of involvement?
I mean, I think it's essentially when you just decide that you want to be physical with the person.
Okay.
Because it's like, clearly I've had, the person I told right before we had sex was not someone I was dating. That was like out at a party, friend of a friend that I kind of knew, and you're like flirting, da-da-da. Then it's like, we're having our own drink in the corner. A makeout happens, you leave. Nice. We're at my apartment, But it felt weird to like drop it in the Uber over.
Yeah.
That felt odd.
Because there's also another person
we're making
there.
2 stops or one? Yeah, the driver's just overhearing casually.
You see it on your like review the next day.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like just go about it as if, you have to kind of weirdly go about it as if you don't have herpes. Of, I wouldn't stress it at all in the first date. I think I would almost, it's not that I'm disagreeing with people for sleeping on the first date, but I almost feel like if you just make a rule that like I don't have sex on the first date, you completely avoid this like telling them about herpes problem. Yeah. And you can more just focus like, do I actually like this guy? Because you might even go, okay, I don't, or girl, you could be like, I don't like this person. But then you might be like, but I would hook up with them.
Yeah.
And then from there you can
kind
of be like, what's up? Yeah. But you definitely should never feel bad, like, even if you want to just hook up with someone and say they like take an Uber to your apartment or whatever, or they drive like a half hour, whatever it is, I don't know where you live, and like say they're already there, or it's like they bought you like, never feel guilt of like, well, they invested this time and stuff, I'm gonna drop this bomb. It's like, no, it's gonna come up when it comes up. Right. And I think the most important thing in general is trying to not make it a big deal. Of, I think, literally being like, oh, by the way, I have to tell you something. It's not a big deal, but a few years ago, I got herpes, and especially you have HSV1, which is what I have, so I've, my kind of spiel has turned into, I have herpes. I'm like, technically it's the cold sore type. I was like, but I do have it vaginally. or I just say downstairs because that's a cuter word. It's the, cold sore type, but downstairs. And then I just say, I haven't had an outbreak in years, or, maybe for you it's 1 year, whatever your time frame is. I think that is reassuring to someone. And if you have slept with people before that then didn't contract it, throw that into. But that's something that's very hard if you're someone listening to this right now where you're like, I just got it, or I haven't had luck telling people I haven't slept with someone yet. That part is really hard, and unfortunately, I don't know what to say other than, like, it's just going to take time.
Yeah.
But there's reassurance in, this was my last outbreak. I take the meds is the other thing. And I've never given it to somebody. And, if we use condoms, we're good. Because especially condoms are such a mental safety thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's, no matter where you took sex ed, I guess unless it was, some people I've heard at Catholic school or just didn't have it, they don't even give options.
Okay.
The ones that do, they're like, condoms.
Yeah.
Wear a condom. It protects pregnancy, STDs, all that stuff. STIs.
Right.
And whatnot. Because I think we referenced it in the last episode or two. There's something of when condoms first came out, it was only for anti-pregnancy. It wasn't just they didn't know this also protects from.
Right. Wasn't it during the AIDS outbreak
STIs and STDs.
or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was this
what a dual feature
for other things. So, I mean, I feel like that's the best advice I could have or give you. Especially, I know I'm ballsy that, I mean, this kind of comes from, from shooters gotta shoot, right? If I was to ask out a boy, I was more likely to do it in person because I knew it would be harder for them to say no. And that sounds manipulative, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's you're putting them on the spot in a way. Which I guess technically isn't fair, but it's in terms of asking people out, it's that's kind of how the world works. If you're at a bar and some person comes over and approaches you and wants to talk to you, it's you're more likely to say hello than a stranger in your DMs. You're I could just delete that.
Right.
Never answer.
Yeah.
But I feel with STDs, STIs, it's a little on the spot ish. And that sometimes that feels unfair, or I just think there's many people too terrified to do it, I guess, calmly in a way.
Right. You got to get your side down to be able to have it be a calm conversation, because otherwise it's
literally practice your spiel.
Yeah.
Because I've had
get a mirror.
The people I've randomly dropped it with was friends, even before I had the podcast come out. And a lot of times it would be because something related would come up, or it often was with female friends, they'd be doubting why some guy didn't call them back or something. And I don't, and it's just and it's that thing of well, is it ever going to work? And I'm I mean, I have herpes and I'm still in the game believing that it's going to work someday, I'm just you got it pretty good. You got herpes, you're doing all right, you'll be fine. Not that you're less than for having it, but yeah, I think you need to practice your spiel a little bit, get it down. But I know a couple people, both male friends of mine that were on the receiving end of hearing from a partner that they had herpes via a phone, or even I know some people do it via text or even email to have it in writing. God forbid that person ever tried to sue them or something.
Oh God.
Which is bizarre, but I'm I get it. Or, it's just more comfortable. Yada, yada, yada. But a lot of times it's unfortunately when you disclose to somebody, they kind of are deciding, are they interested in you more than having sex?
Right.
So sometimes it's scary to disclose herpes because it feels like you're basically being where is this going?
Right.
Is how I think a lot of men hear it. Or a lot of people say, they're oh, I wouldn't care if someone had herpes if, I really liked them or was in love with them. And that's fair to say.
Yeah, it's just hard so early on to put that much pressure on something.
Oh, yeah. It sucks. It's I just, I think the biggest thing is when you are not comfortable. I had a couple that I got choked up. And, I date men. So it's they kind of immediately were in almost fix it mode or a little bit of panic of oh, someone's crying and let's just get the crying to stop. Kind of thing. You can tell, even though it wasn't full crying, whatever. But it's but I could see their reaction on their face was primarily just because of how upset I was. That it's almost oh, this is a big deal. This
is taking a turn.
Yeah. Whereas because the person I told right before we hooked up was after I had it for 2 years.
Okay.
2. Yeah. Almost. Yeah. 3. Yeah, 2-3. I'm about to be 3. So it was like I had finally hit the point I was super comfortable just kind of dropping that and being like, yeah, so that's that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, weirdly the not trick, but thing I've told a lot of men is like, you have sex with women when you don't expect to have sex with them is the most common time it happens.
Yeah.
And that's almost the same with herpes of kind of like, yeah, you know, I have this thing, blah, blah. You know, you say you're a couple bullets, but then you just, at the end, you're like, yeah, and hey, you know, if you don't want to hook up tonight, it's totally fine. Like, whatever you're comfortable doing. But just going, you know, but I just figured you deserve to know. And I couldn't in good conscience, like, sleep with you and not tell you.
Yeah.
Because then that just reiterates, like, look how great of a person I am. But it's always this thing of, you know, they might just sit there and go, well, it's not that I don't want to have sex, but I just, you know, I maybe need some time to kind of process that and whatever. And, the other good thing to throw in is, like, yeah, you can ask me questions if you want, but I encourage them to talk to a doctor.
Okay.
Because you just feel like it's the most valid information, and it's like you are more likely to trust your doctor than really anybody. And also there's this thing, we got to do the book The Game that actually is designed for men, but there's a section of it that talks about staying in the emotional state with a person and never leaving to, I forget what they call it, but it's almost like just you should stay in emotional land. So like if you're going to be their source of information for like herpes or anything, like it's like how a lot of men, if you suddenly are like giving them advice on their work or something, it's like, whoa, that's, I'm dating you because I like you and we have emotional land.
Yeah.
And it's like now you're coming over into my work land.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like 2 separate buckets.
Right. Okay. So it's kind of like that of like, if you're suddenly the informant of like the herpes thing, you're kind of almost losing like the romance between you.
Right.
Whereas it's like, look, people will find out information they want to find out. They can do research on their own. But it is scary to just like Google herpes, especially if they're suddenly looking at images.
Right.
Because it's the most extreme cases. So that's why I'm always like, talk to your doctor, because the doctors will immediately be like, yeah, it's really not a big deal even if you got it.
Right.
Like you'd be fine.
Right.
Sort of thing. At least I would hope, unless their doctor's an asshole. But essentially, I'd hope the doctor's hearing it like, well, you might have a potential herpes patient, so maybe don't freak them out. But yeah, it's like every doctor's always been like, yeah, this is not a big deal, and you wouldn't want to be with someone that thinks it's a big deal. And I look at them like, yeah, you don't have herpes, so you don't get it. You know, like, I would love if you know a primary care doctor in New York City that has herpes, let a girl know. I need primary care. That'd be nice to bond over. But I don't know, I feel like I answered that.
Yeah.
As well as I could. Unfortunately, it's a lot of trial and error, and the worst someone can say is no.
And then you move on.
Yeah, and especially like, God, I've never had this, but if someone was to react to like, almost like, like clearly, especially physical, like physically kind of angry or something, like aggressive in a way, or like it's like so angry, I would kind of be like, listen, this is just one little thing. Imagine actually being with this person long term and real problems hit. Yeah,
if they can't handle that conversation in a mature way, then it's a good person to realize that from quickly and get them out of your life.
Oh, for sure.
Because no one needs that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, and also I don't know where you live, but I run a little like herpes support group, which it's based in New York, but now since like we can't meet, I'm going to be doing like some virtual meetings. Ooh. So if anyone listening to this has herpes and might want to join for a virtual meeting, you don't have to talk. If you don't want to talk, you can kind of just like listen. Mm-hmm. I'm sure people got some updates with pandemic stuff. So the link and stuff info is below. So anybody is welcome to join. It's free to join. So yeah, come join for a meeting if you'd like. And if you have any questions, you want to email us, we're at shootjustgottashootpod@gmail.com. And any other things we want to plug before we get to like the meat of our material today?
I think that's it.
I guess share it with a friend. You got a friend you want to tell about the pod? That helps the pod. And if you want extra episodes, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/shootjustgottashoot. There are 2 free ones if you want to go check it out, what we're doing over there. And that's the way you could help support the pod too. It's like $5 a month is the minimum.
And it's pretty fucking great.
And yeah, we got some juicy stuff on there. So you're getting more info actually of my pandemic dates that I've been trying. So